Okay. I did that. My job was making it so that all missions know in advance what specific complications the ship that you're going to board will have, and they do. The creating of ships before you accept the mission, I kind of already did that day before yesterday, and then from there it's pretty easy, except for just like one thing that threw me into a panic for a while. One of those things where I think, oh yeah, this is straightforward, and then you come to write something and you realise you're like, oh, we don't have access to the mission object from here. And I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was something the ship was doing. And it was kind of a question of like, when you assign, 30% of the guards are going to have armour, at some point that is above a threshold where where you want to warn the player, a lot of guards have armour here. I won't give them the exact percentage because it makes it very artificial. But it'll say either some guards have armour or lots of guards have armour, and where that threshold should be specified, I wanted to specify at the moment that in the script that sorts out like, okay, for a difficulty 3 ship, here's the range that that variable can have, and then that's where I'd say, oh, and also if it goes above this, then it's many rather than just some. And the problem with that is really that kind of list of complications should be on the mission object, and when a ship is deciding its variables, it currently doesn't have a way of knowing what mission object it's attached to. I could make one, but there are other situations where you're creating a ship that doesn't have a mission object attached to it, and so it becomes very conditional and very complicated. And so instead what it does is we don't put those thresholds there, so the piece of code that actually sets those values does not know or care whether they count as high or medium or whatever. And then the mission listings computer, that's the one that looks at the ship's values and says, okay, if it's over 0.3, we're going to say that has a lot of guards. And I was resisting that because I thought it made more sense to keep all that logic together, like in the same place that you're deciding the thresholds, that you're deciding the normal values and ranges of these things, you should also be deciding the thresholds, which does make a certain amount of sense. But it has that extra complication that the ship would have to know about its mission object and talk to its mission object, which creates more interdependencies and I think makes the code messier overall than just having the mission listing object decide at the time that it's displaying the stuff, do we call this high or do we call it low? And yeah, I kind of think that makes sense as well. Like, the thing that's going to convert this number into into a piece of human readable information is the bit that decides which numbers classify as which piece of human readable information. Yeah, it seems fine. And much more importantly, I can code that. It's really simple and very easy to do. And so now it's done. Next thing is ratings, and I talked yesterday about why that's going to be difficult. And I've been sort of pinging it around in my brain on the back burner ever since. And I think maybe it needs a two-pronged approach. So something I'm trying to bear in mind is that separately from missions having clauses about don't kill anyone or there's a bonus if you set off no alarms, I would like ideally to have it so that anytime you leave a ship we tell you, did you kill anyone, did you set off any alarms, and just have that kind of feedback of like, if you did it stealthily, I want to tell the player, well, you did it really stealthily. And if you did set off some stuff, it'll just be kind of like the game just telling you what it's tracking. Hey, I noticed you killed a bunch of people there. And it won't say don't do that, and it won't be judgmental. It'll just reflect what you did. And I like that as a player. Particularly like, Dishonored makes a huge deal of like, you killed no one, and you what's the other thing? Never got spotted is their phrasing of it. So I want to do that. And of course, that's if I already had that system in there, then the task of having missions with conditions that relate to those things seems pretty easy, right? It's just, well, if you already have those ratings, let's just have the missions look at those and see how you did. The difficulty is that sort of when you undock, we show you some ratings system works fine for split ships because all we're tracking is did you kill someone while you were aboard. Does it? Let's say you're aboard and then the ship splits, and then you leave again. I think we're just counting... Still tricky to say how many people you killed. Okay, so I'm just going to talk through how it should work for mission clauses. So the things that detect certain aspects of your performance and either fail a mission or give you a bonus depending on how they're set up. For that, even then it's difficult. It can't be a case of when you kill someone, we check what ship they're aboard, and then check whether that's the ship that the mission relates to, and then set it according to that. That doesn't work because you can split a ship, and now you've got two ships, and one of them is the mission ship and the other one isn't, but for clause purposes, we would still care if you killed someone on any fragment of that ship. If Offworld have hired you and they've said, do not kill anyone, there's no extra clause that says if you split the ship in two, it's okay to kill people on one half of the ship and not on the other, right? They're talking about the meaningful sense of what they're specifying is the people who are aboard the ship, like at the time we're telling you this, there is just one ship, and these 10 people are aboard it. Don't kill any of those people. That's what they say. And that's the vital thing. So it doesn't matter where those people end up. If the ship gets split or whatever, still those people we need to know about. And luckily, unlike ships, people can't be split into, at least not into two functioning parts. And so we can rely on the IDs of those crew staying constant forever. Forever? Yeah. If you quit the game and load it again, we can't handle that because we currently don't load ships at all. Like any ship you're in the middle of is lost if you do that. So, when we create the mission, or when we generate the mission ship, which happens at the time you accept the mission, that's when we should make a list of the crew, because that's the first time we even know how many crew there are going to be, and it's certainly the first time the crew exist. So when you accept the mission, we're going to have to make a list of the crew. That list shouldn't be stored on the ship, it should be stored on the mission object. So this is just for doing the missions clauses, and right away this does not fit with the rating system. The rating system is optional, I don't have to do that, that's just a nice idea. The mission clauses are pretty important because if I can have these, then missions can have a lot more variety between them. You can have these really interesting combinations of like, oh, this one has a time limit and I'm not allowed to kill anyone, and the objective is to capture somebody, and that combination of things is interesting. So we're going to have to make a list of crew aboard the ship and store it on the mission object. Then, when you complete the mission, no, we don't want to do it when you complete the mission, because as soon as anyone on that list does not exist or is dead, we need to, at that moment, tell you failed the mission. We don't need to carry on and do the mission and then find out afterwards, oh, by the way, you killed someone really early on. And particularly if there's ever like a situation where you're not sure if something killed someone or not. We need to tell you as soon as you kill someone. So the mission object will have to check on a regular basis. If it has the stipulation about killing someone fails the mission, it will need to regularly check all of those guards and say, hey, are any of them dead? And if one of them is dead, then it will tell you about it. Yesterday I said that if you took someone off a ship, I'd have to count that that's killing them. I don't think that's true anymore. If we have a list of their IDs, we can find them wherever they are. It doesn't matter what ship they're aboard, doesn't matter how far away they are. All that matters is that they exist. And if they don't exist, if you kidnap one and then you put them on a chunk of ship and then you fly 1,000,000 miles away from that chunk of ship and that chunk of ship despawns, which it might do, then that guy won't exist anymore and that would count as a kill. I'm okay with that because you did not look after that guy. You were not taking good care of him. That is someone who might well be dead, just realistically. One of the nice things about heat one of the nice things about heat signatures, fiction and structure and simulation, obviously I can't simulate everything all the time, and at some point I can't keep track of everything you ever interacted with, things are going to have to despawn, but if that happens at a very large distance, it also kind of makes sense that that thing might just be destroyed. It's drifting through the galaxy, there are all kinds of nasty things out there that could get it. There's no reason to think that that would still be there when you come back. And similarly for items, they can be stolen, people can be killed, ships can be destroyed. If you come back to something that you left an hour ago, 1,000,000 miles away, and you find it's not there, I mean, A, you would have an extraordinarily hard time being sure that it is there, because almost everything is moving to some extent, so everything's drifting. But also B, like, you have no right to expect that to be there. I'm fine with you finding that it's gone. So if you do that to a person and they're missing, that's fine. So we just taking someone off the ship does not make them count as killed, only if they actually die, or if you take them so far away and leave them there that they might as well be dead. If you leave them for dead, we could call it. So, the mission object have to regularly go through the list of guards and check whether any of them have been killed. Probably we can extend that to allow for a clause that says don't even knock anyone out. And so it could go through the list of people and... Ooh, yeah. So go through the list of people and also check, are they conscious? You know, if one of the stipulations is don't even knock anyone out, then they've all got to be conscious. You are, I'm afraid, going to be responsible for everything. We're not going to try and detect whether it was you who knocked them unconscious or not. If someone gets knocked unconscious and the clause was to not knock anyone unconscious, you knock someone unconscious. We could even make that a sort of... We can solve that with writing. The mission can specify, instead of saying don't knock anyone out, it could say ensure no one is knocked out. And then it's your fault. That's great. And then the thing that just occurred to me as I was saying that is this list of guards is also how we can detect witnesses. Because the way, so I was saying like Dishonor makes a big deal of whether you are spotted or not. I don't like that system. I don't like that there is a huge difference on my permanent report card between someone who sees me in the moment that I kill them, as they do in many Dishonored takedowns, and someone who sees me a split second before I kill them. Like, to me that's the same thing. Like, in realistic terms, it isn't even, there isn't even a fundamental difference. You know, there are just takedowns of Dishonored where you turn someone around and they see you and then you stab them. So they did see you before you killed them. And in the game's terms, that is utterly 100% different to you creep up on someone just as they turn around and they see you and then you stab them. That's totally different to it. And I think those are the same thing. If you kill someone, it doesn't matter whether they saw you or not. And so in Heat Signature, as in Gunpoint, the stat I'm going to track is living witnesses. How many people left alive who saw you? And that means if you are going lethal, then you don't need to worry as much about being spotted. But if you want to do the really challenging thing, which is to not hurt anybody but also not be seen, then that is still something that the ratings reflect. You would have to not be seen by anyone, and if you did get seen by someone, knocking them out doesn't help you, it doesn't get rid of that, you'd have to actually kill them. And I think that also creates an interesting kind of transition from like, oh, now that I've been seen, I've knocked this guy out non-lethally, but maybe I want to kill him because he has seen me, and maybe I care more about living witnesses than that. So, if every time a guard sees you, it just sets their witness flag to true. It doesn't need to specify that it saw you, the player, because there's only one player. They can just be like a witness or they're not witness. Then, it's also only the guards only and all of the guards who are aboard the original ship that we care about. If they ever see you, even if they're not aboard that ship at the time, if the ship is split in two or you've carried them somewhere else, if they ever see you, you were spotted. Because this is living witnesses, and that is different to alarms. So alarms will be a case of like, did you set off an alarm on this ship? Will it? Yeah, that's fine, because if you ever do set off an alarm, it means the captain is in his chair. That's the only way that an alarm to be triggered. If you take out the captain first, then an alarm can't be triggered. And so it's always the same ship that triggers the alarm. Actually, I'm going to go through that in a minute. What I'm talking about right now is witnesses. Witnesses, the mission object can still go through the list of crew that were aboard the original ship and tell you whether any of them are alive and a witness. If they are dead and a witness, that doesn't count for anything, counts as a kill. And living witnesses will have to be evaluated at the time that you complete the mission, not before. We are not going to fail you. If the objective, one of the clauses, if a mandatory clause of the mission is leave no living witnesses, then the fact that someone sees you doesn't end the mission. Right now they're a living witness. You still have the power to change that. You can change one of those two things. You can't change the witness part, but you can change the other part. And you know, that's giving me an idea, like, could I give you an item that can change the witness part? Like someone sees you and you, like a Men in Black flashy thing? That would be kind of fun. So, living witnesses, we've covered kills, knockouts, living witnesses. Let's think about alarms. Alarms can be, like, we already have an alarmed variable for the ship. When the alarm goes off, it switches to an alarmed flag, gets turned on, and it can't ever be turned off, I don't think. And so If no alarms is a stipulation of the mission, then the mission object should regularly check that alarmed variable. It would be a bit more efficient to say, this is a code structure thing. The thing I'm trying to decide between is, should, there is already a script that like says trigger alarm, and that's the only time an alarm can be triggered. Everything that triggers an alarm runs that script. So that script could say, hey, are we on a mission, and does the mission need to know about this? If so, tell it. I think that the other way is cleaner, which is that the ship and the guards and the alarms and all that stuff doesn't know anything about missions. It has no idea what's going on. But the mission knows about the ship, and the mission checks, are you alarmed yet? This is, I mean, it doesn't have to do it every frame, but even if it did, it wouldn't be a performance problem, because you only ever have one mission active at once, and just checking a flag every frame is nothing. So I think the mission object should just check regularly, hey, has an alarm been set off yet? And it should only do that check if it cares, if that's one of the stipulations of the mission. And that should work. Because the ship itself, you can split the ship, but the part of the ship that can trigger the alarm will always have the same ID as the original one. When you split it, if there's a cockpit in existence, then whichever part has the cockpit takes the ID of the old ship and can still be referred to in the same way. If there is no cockpit, it takes the largest part, but at that point it doesn't matter because there can be no alarm. Is that true? Yeah. So, you could set up an alarm and then destroy the cockpit, right? At that moment, no further alarm can be triggered. An alarm has been triggered, but the part of the ship that has the part of the ship that retains the original ID is no longer something we can make predictions about, because it will just be the biggest chunk from then on. Once the cockpit is destroyed, the first thing you do is destroy the cockpit. First thing you do is set up an alarm, then you destroy the cockpit and nothing else. Now the ship's still one piece, but it has no cockpit. Every time it splits from then on, the biggest piece will get the old ID, but at that point that's not necessarily the bit that had the cockpit in it, or there is no sense of that because the cockpit's gone. But if the larger ship was alarmed before any of this, all bits of ship it can ever break into will also have their alarm flag set to true. I mean, they should do it. I haven't checked if they do, but they should. And we can make it that way if that's not already true. And that means that at any given time we can just check whatever currently has the original ship ID, does that have an alarm flag? Wait, what am I talking about? We don't care. After the cockpit's destroyed, we don't need to ever look at this again, because the only time for alarms, we never need to check at the end of the mission. We only need to check when it goes off, at the time the alarm goes off. As soon as an alarm has been triggered, the mission object will detect that and it will fail you if that was a condition, or if it was a bonus, it will have to set some flag on the mission object to say that bonus has been failed. It could even, whatever the variable is that says, hey, there's a bonus for no alarms, it could just set that to false once it detects an alarm. So we don't care what happens. You can split it all you like after that. We don't need to track whether on each bit of the ship whether an alarm was triggered, because after the alarm has been triggered, no further code needs to run. It's over. Whether it's a bonus or it's mandatory, we don't need to check. Okay, that's good. Is there another thing? I'm not going to do time bonuses, I don't think, because you already have so many timing elements to do with like ships in transit and ships responding to alarms. I feel like layering another time element on top of that feels excessive. If I was doing per ship ratings, no, I just won't do timing. Anything else? Alarms, witnesses, knockouts, kills. Is there anything else we want the rating system to reflect? Oh, sorry, the conditions to have the option of measuring. I think not. I think that's it. Alarms, witnesses. Yeah. Still ends up being like violence and stealth, basically. So, this has been, a complex discussion. This has been enough work to figure out how it works for missions that A, most of this stuff doesn't work for a per ship rating system, and B, it's so much work to get this working, I don't want to also do a per ship rating system. That's a different system, and it's going to be too much work. If I did really want to have something like that, I think I would be tempted to, if you're not on a mission and you board a ship, we could create a mission object for that ship. It's a little mission, and we wouldn't give you an objective, we just use that mission object to keep track of all the things that happen on that ship. And then when you leave the ship, we call that mission complete, and then that's when it will tell you your stats. I don't know for sure if that will work out, that's just kind of a top of my head idea. But mission clauses are much more important than ratings, so I'm going to do mission clauses now in the way I just said.